Hey everyone, my name is Michael. I'm the Customer Success Lead at Xano, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create with no code SMS Magic Link. So what is SMS Magic Link? Well, first let's start out with what Magic Link is. Magic Link is a way to enable your users to log in or authenticate to your application without a password. They'll do it with a link that is sent via SMS. Okay, so that's where the SMS method comes in. So Magic Link or passwordless authentication has become very popular. At Xano, we already have an extension that's pre-built that does Magic Link with SendGrid. So it's that same functionality, but delivers the Magic Link with an email. So we've had a lot of users say, can you do this with SMS? Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward because we already have built a Twilio extension, and you can just kind of combine the two, just doing a little manipulation in the function stack to enable your users to do passwordless authentication or Magic Link via SMS. So I'm here in the marketplace in Xano, and the first extension you're going to need is under user authentication, and it's just that Magic Link with SendGrid. I'm not going to go through the setup in this tutorial because we have a separate tutorial explaining all this, so please go ahead and watch that if you haven't already. There's also instructions on this page. That's already installed in this workspace for me. The second extension we're going to need is under messaging, and it is this Twilio SMS one. Once again, I'm not going to go through the setup on this. There's a tutorial on that and also instructions within this marketplace page. So now that I have both of these set up, the first thing is to make sure in your database for your user, you actually have a field with their phone number, because you're going to need that phone number to actually send an SMS or a text message. Okay, so now that we have that in our schema for our users, let's go ahead and let's just jump to the API and kind of talk through what we're going to do. So I'll jump into this Magic Link API group, and you see there's two endpoints here. First is to request the Magic Link, and then is to actually do the Magic Link login, where that handshake from the link gets an authentication token and actually logs your user in. So we only need to manipulate this get Magic Link right here. So if we look at this right now, how it's set up, it takes in the user's email address. So the user would just go type in their email address. The Magic Link would be generated. It'd go through a function, which we'll look at in a second. And then with SendGrid, it will send them the email with the Magic Link. So there's kind of two ways to go about creating this with SMS. First is kind of the path of least resistance, still using email as an input. And the other one takes a little more editing of the function, so that you are only using the phone number if you only want the user to input, say, their phone number, and you don't want to use a user's email address at all. So let's go with the path of least resistance first. So right here, the user is going to input their email address. That's going to be an input of this Magic Link function here, as you can see, which will do some logic, which we'll look at later. It'll make sure that Magic Link exists, and then it'll send with SendGrid an email address. So let's go ahead and hide this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a function here. Since we hid that SendGrid one, if we go to custom functions, we can see that Twilio send SMS function is right there. So let's go ahead and select that, and we'll just call this send, we'll say SMS. In the inputs here, you notice it has that to number, so we'll get that from the user table in a second. But let's go ahead and edit this body. I might just say something like, this is your Magic Link. And then after that, I can go ahead and use this character called %s. So I'll just type in %s, and I can combine that with a filter, which will be sprintf, which does variable text substitution. So if I go to add filter, and I just search sprint, it should come up. And now I can add an additional argument here. And all I'm going to add in is just that variable Magic Link, because it's just producing that link. I'll hit update. I'll hit save. And now we actually need to get the user. So let's go ahead and do one more function here. We'll go ahead and do get record, user table. And then the field name, because we're taking in the email as an input, we'll find that field email. And the field value will actually be that input value of email. Okay, Let's go ahead. I'll just name this, instead of user1, we'll just say user. And now that we have the user details, if we go into our Twilio function, we can go ahead and select the variable user, and we'll just simply go ahead and say dot phone for our phone field. And I'll hit save. And now if I go ahead and run this, I already have my own phone number in there and just a dummy email address, because we're not actually sending a real email. So I can just type in michael@email.com. And if I hit run, we can see that we get a success message true, and I just got a text message. So that looks like it worked out okay. So that's the path of least resistance. Now, if we don't want to use the user's email address at all, we're going to need to go into this generate magic link function and do some manipulation so that we are only looking up with the phone number. So let's go ahead and jump to that generate magic link function. So I'll go to my functions page in the library, and right here is our generate magic link. And you can see this takes in an email address as an input. So what do we need to do to make the flow all just take in a phone number? Well, first we need to add a phone input field. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and call this phone. And now we don't need this email input, so I'm simply going to delete this. Right away in the first function here, you can see that this precondition used that input of email address. So we're going to need to change that, and we'll just kind of go by function to function and see what we need to alter. So let's go ahead and change the input to phone. So that can't be equal to null. Make sure we save this. You might also want to change that error message, which is something like phone number is required, or whatever error message you want there. So I'll go ahead and hit save. Now our query all records from user. So we're just looking up one user here. We're doing it based on the email address. So once again, we'll have to switch this. First, on the left side, we'll start with the database. So user dot, and we'll just hit the drop down, and we'll see that phone field. And then the value here will have to be our input. So I'll go ahead and clear this out and just select the input here, and I can hit done, and that all looks good. Let's make sure the output is returning the phone. That all looks good. Okay, save. So now we simply have a precondition, so the user does not equal null. We are generating a password called token, and we're not taking in any email here, so we're good here. Creating the variable of the magic link, once again, not using the email, nothing to change here. And then the JWT payload, where we don't need to alter. And then this edit record. So anytime we're messing with inputs, it's a really good idea to check your database request functions. So let's go ahead and look here. We can see we're looking up the user by their ID because we already have it in function 2. And then if we scroll down, we see we're editing this phone field here. So let's go ahead and just make sure to hide that and hit save. And then just the JWE payload, and we're just creating the actual magic link. So now that we've done all that, we should actually be ready to rock. So I can actually even test this function first. Let's just make sure it all works. Type in my phone number, make sure to blur that out, and hit run. And we can see we get that magic link back. So now if we jump to our API, we just have a few minor changes to make now that that function's all set up. So let's go ahead and get rid of this email input because we're not using it anymore. And let's go ahead and add that phone number in, and I'll hit save. And so let's make sure that input is mapped up properly since we altered this function. So if we select the function, we can see it'll automatically be mapped since we called it the same thing. And now our get record, let's go ahead and change the way we're looking up the user. We're going to take the field name of phone and the field value of the input phone. And one other thing you could do is you could hide the user's phone number by adding it to the output of this magic link if you don't want it in here. When you do that though, make sure you know the path for your magic link and the phone number because you will change the response of this generate magic link. Okay, let's just double check our send SMS, and that all looks good. So we're ready to rock. Let's go ahead and run this. So the user would come into your app, They would enter in their phone number. They would hit enter. You'd get this response back, and they'd promptly be getting a text message with their magic link, so they can authenticate into your app without a password. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. This is also a great showcase of Xano, how you can combine multiple extensions together or manipulate a pre-existing extension to do the functionality that you want to accomplish. If you found this video helpful, please like it. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to help other people find this content. And I hope you try and recreate this and implement it into your application. So thank you for watching.